Okay, everyone, up next we have a conversation in partnership with Tulsa Innovation Labs about how cities can create economic development programs that actually recruit new businesses, maintain their current workforce, and develop future opportunities. And I'm going to be moderating this conversation. I'm honored to do so. And I want to welcome our panelists to the stage. Jennifer Hankins, the Managing Director of the Tulsa Innovation Labs, and the Honorable Matt Pinnell, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Oklahoma. Please make them welcome. All right, welcome. One of the questions I asked backstage before we began is that if you work together, and your response was?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how government can work with nonprofits or for-profit organizations to actually say, we have an idea, we share a common interest, and how we make that happen. What is that like when folks outside of government come to you?
Well, I was in the private sector before I got elected lieutenant governor, and so was our governor. So you had governor and I both came in at the same time about 5 years ago, both from the private sector. And so it was fairly natural for us to reach outside of state government. Every state should be doing this if you want to be as innovative as possible. So for us, it was fairly natural. Maybe in other cities and other states, it may not be as natural if you work most of your career inside of the public sector. But for us, we immediately reached out to the nonprofit community. Oklahoma has more nonprofits than almost any other state in the country. Pretty unique for a smaller state to have that many nonprofits. And those in the private sector. So from day one, we've been reaching out to those that are doing the innovative work really on the front lines. We look at them as the front lines. The state should help, but it's really the private sector and the nonprofit world that's leading the way.
And the name, the Tulsa Innovation Labs, talk with us about some of your successes.
Wow, we've had a lot of success in the state of Oklahoma, and I really believe that Tulsa's kind of a renegade in thinking about how cities in particular can leverage their strengths. So first and foremost, I know we were recently talking about the CHIPS and Science Act. We were designated a tech hub by the EDA recently for a tech hub on equitable and trustworthy autonomy, thinking about how our region and our state can really lead this deployment of autonomous systems. Think about drones, autonomous vehicles, battery manufacturing, all of these things. Second, in addition to that, we also want to Build Back Better Regional Challenge. So another $40 million that came into our space and into our state to support the development of advanced mobility industry. Through that $40 million, we supercharged some amazing assets we have in our region at the Oklahoma State University Unmanned Air Systems Research Institute. We developed a workforce program that'll create 300 new skilled positions within our region, and then also create jobs that are 50% higher wages than what our state currently sees. So a lot of those big efforts at the federal level, really recognizing what we're doing in our region, are pretty critical. And then getting back to Lieutenant Governor's comments, we also got our two governors together a couple years ago and signed a MOU for the collaboration of an advanced mobility industry, really targeting Northeast Oklahoma and Northwest Arkansas as a collaborative hub for the development of this industry. We're not seeking to compete. We want to collaborate where we can as possible. In Tulsa Innovation Labs, we believe that our ability to be scrappy, be on the ground, and really find opportunities to partner with the state, partner with industry, are what make us successful.
I hear it said often that we want to collaborate, we don't want to compete, but ultimately you want an edge. How do you find the balance?
Yeah. Well, for us, it's making sure, one of the big reasons that I love talking about the Tulsa Innovation Labs, they don't try to be all things to all people. So you got to figure out what your strengths are in whatever city and whatever state that you live in. And Oklahoma has done a pretty darn good job of that over the last 5 years, is we're not looking, okay, well, that city's doing that. And so let's just copy them and bring that to Oklahoma. You can go down rabbit trails for a very long time and waste a lot of money operating in that scope. So Tulsa Innovation Labs figured out what they wanted to be. what fit the workforce of Northeast Oklahoma, and in particular, the relationship that we have between Tulsa and Arkansas as well, the 412 superhighway that has kind of been dubbed recently. And so that's one of the big reasons that they're being successful. Yes, they're collaborative. We're trying to work very nicely together in the sandbox together, but we're not trying to do everything. We're trying to do what we do well. And then the four core kind of pillars that the Tulsa Innovation Lab has. I think that's one of the reasons the federal government has come in and said, listen, we like what you're doing and we like the strategy that you have, and because of that, we're going to invest in you.
When you look at job retention, first you have to have job creation. Then you look at retention, and then you look at how to sustain. What makes Oklahoma, what makes the Innovation Lab different than the 49 other either collaborators or competitors?
We have a steep hill to climb, just like every other place, and especially these big investments that I mentioned from the federal government in particular. Our Build Back Better Regional Challenge seeks to create 48,000 new jobs in our region. Tech hubs, should we be awarded an implementation grant, 200,000 new jobs just in our region. So what we've tried to do, and actually we were talking about this at breakfast, is really taking that balance of opportunities that prepare people with the skills that they need for the jobs in the market that exist today, while also arming them and training them for the jobs and the skills that they're going to need 5-10 years from now. And so we do this by taking a really unique approach. At TIL, we've launched a suite of workforce programs, the first being the Cyber Skills Center. Cyber underpins everything touching U.S. jobs today. So we created a 26-week, call it a boot camp, call it an accelerated training program, whatever you want to call it, but allow individuals, complete with wraparound support. If you're a single mom and you need transportation to evaluate whether or not you want to work in this new field, we're going to provide that for you. If you are seeking some mental health support along the way to help make sure that your journey is complete, we provide all of those comprehensive wraparound support so that you can enter this workforce training program. We're going to accelerate your skill set, prepare you then. Do you want to take that on to a 2-year degree program? And those are transferable credits, by the way, which is very uncommon, a boot camp to a 2-year degree program. And then, oh, by the way, should you be really ambitious and really crazy enough, I think, to go and get your 4-year degree, we also created that pathway, and you'll get 2 years free off that 4-year degree as well.
How long, when was the Tulsa Innovation Labs created?
My goodness, we're only 4 years old right now, so we started a company in January of 2020, super fun time. But, you know, our impetus was to come in, identify the gaps in our ecosystem that are holding back our innovation economy, and rapidly deploy interventions in those areas so that we can reach scale sooner, so that our community is not left behind.
Okay, she referenced 2020. Yeah. So economic turmoil can come at any time for any reason, as we have found out, some that we never dreamt before. Yeah. Knowing that can happen, knowing that we are up against, maybe the latest is what, AI? Yeah. What does the state do? Where's the state's role to say, we want to push forward knowing we have all these currents swirling around us that may turn into whitewater rapids at any moment?
Yeah. Well, you know, well before 2020, we had the Oklahoma Center for the Advancement of Science and Technology. That's been in place for a few decades in the state of Oklahoma, which you know, this was the state agency that owned innovation. You know, someone's got to own it. We can talk about workforce all day long. We can talk about innovation, but someone has to own it inside of state government, in every state. And for us, it was OCAST. And we had a pipeline, we call it our innovation pipeline model. And so that had been operating for a few decades, which the individuals that work for that agency are thinking to themselves, as Jennifer said, what is coming? Not 1 year from now, but a couple decades from now. And that helped us. I don't think you could argue that any state was prepared for what happened in the global pandemic. And I think it showed that most states were well behind when it came to interacting with their taxpayers in their states. The ARPA dollars that states received over the last few years really has been a game changer for every single state when it comes to innovation and really just all of our outward-facing websites, our largest agencies. We've been able to be so much more innovative and responsive to them because of the American Relief Act dollars in particular. If those dollars were strategically spent with the right vendors to make sure that the work was done right. We've transformed a lot of how we interact with taxpayers because of that. But you have to have someone inside the state. Again, I'm a statewide elected official. You have to have someone inside the state, an agency, that is thinking that way. And again, for us, it was OCAST, and then we're now able to plug into the Tulsa Innovation Labs of the world across our 77 counties because we had somebody on the front lines for multiple decades.
Every state is misunderstood some way. It takes living there to understand, or to begin to understand it. How is Oklahoma most misunderstood?
You want to take that one?
I'll go and you can go. I was the Secretary of Tourism and Branding the first term in office. I don't know if there was another elected official.
Branding's a tough word, isn't it?
It's a tough word. But it goes directly to this question. Because a lot of people have perceptions of Oklahoma that might not be popular or wrong, right? I think at the top of the list is, yes, Oklahoma is an oil and gas state, but today, Oklahoma, over 40% of our energy comes from renewables now in the state of Oklahoma. We're the Saudi Arabia of wind, as well as natural gas in the state. And so Oklahoma truly has become kind of a new energy state. Making major plays on hydrogen as well, with a hydrogen hub that we've created with a few other states. So that would be one thing. I would say second, Oklahoma arguably is the most diverse state in America. The last panel talked a little bit about that. We have 39 sovereign nations inside of one state. Think about that. 39 federally recognized tribes inside of one state. I know North Carolina has a tribal presence as well, but when it comes to that interaction between governments, that's misunderstood, but it's also something that I highly promote all the time because it's a differentiator for us.
Yeah, and I think I would add from our perspective at Tulsa Innovation Labs, this perception that we are kind of in the past, right? That we're a legacy oil and gas town, that we're legacy aerospace. And I think a lot of times in economic development, we have this problem where we come at things from a deficit mindset. And I think we're really trying to challenge that and come at things from an opportunity mindset in particular. The federal government already has said, like Tulsa in particular, you can be a tech hub. Not only is what you're doing great and we generally like it, but we firmly believe that in 10 years, given the right resources, you can become globally competitive in a key and critical technology for the national security that we all live and breathe and die by. And so I think realizing and really inspiring local people in particular that we are more, we can be more, and that the assets exist here. We're not down on ourselves, right? This just because we are an oil and gas town doesn't mean we're destined for insolvency or whatever it may be, but really that is in that skill and those core competencies that our legacy industry bases have offered us and given our state are what are going to drive us into the future. And that's great. And most places really don't have that. A lot of places are having to create things from nothing. And we have an opportunity before us, and we are on the cutting edge.
So change is always tough. We hear that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. So at least I don't think so. So when you look at the changes in energy policies and the energy futures for Oklahoma, has that been a tough sell in the past decade? Is it becoming easier?
You got to connect the dots for taxpayers. Change is hard. There's no doubt. We've implemented a lot of change in our state government over the last 5 years. But if you can communicate that to taxpayers about what that means when it comes to economic development, and not just creating jobs for current taxpayers, but really the key for us is looking those taxpayers in the eyes and saying your kids and your grandkids are going to have an opportunity to live in Oklahoma. They're going to have an opportunity, they're going to have every excuse to be able to raise their own families in Oklahoma. And that really has been something that the governor and I have used, because what we're talking about is diversifying our economy. Every state over the next decade that is going to grow. If states do grow, it's going to be because they're helping diversify their economies. We're an oil and gas state, yes, but aviation and aerospace is the #2 industry in the state of Oklahoma today. That's good for the oil and gas industry. So diversification is key, but it's really connecting the dots with taxpayers to make sure that they know that their kids and grandkids, not just them, but there's going to be opportunities for their kids.
What's the biggest challenge for the lab?
I think our biggest challenge continues to be to push the bar. I think in Tulsa, we've really set the bar pretty high for ourselves, for our region. We've painted the picture of what's possible in our community. I think executing, we heard from the Postmaster General earlier about executing a strategy, and I think we've said it, we've validated it, we've united the partners around it, and now executing that strategy forever is going to be.
And so your naysayers who push back on you and say, oh, you're moving a little too fast, you're trying a little too much. How do you convince them?
How do you convince them? I think for places like ours, to be completely candid, the window of opportunity is closing, right? Like technological advances, and especially knowing how far technology impacts your economic outcomes on the ground. I mean, goodness, you talk about economic opportunity and how do we get more Black citizens involved in technology, more Native Americans, Latinos, and women into these industries. You have to catch up at the speed of technology. And so for me, the impetus is simply technology is moving fast. Technology is going to drive our economy forward. We have to move at the pace of industry. And already, Oklahoma, we haven't invested as much as we needed to all along this way to pave the path. So it's quite an enormous amount of tension of we have to do it now. We didn't exactly have the perfect infrastructure to get it done. Let's bring in all these resources, bring in the right partners, and now execute the hell out of it, because we don't have any other choice, frankly.
Urgency helps.
Yeah.
As Lieutenant Governor, you have a vantage point that allows you to see the landscape of Oklahoma for the good and for the challenges a bit differently, just because of where you are on a daily basis. Do you agree with Jennifer's assessment of the challenges? Do you take it even deeper?
Yeah, we do, particularly when it comes to workforce. So first term in office, Secretary of Tourism and Branding. My second term in office, I'm Secretary of Workforce and Economic Development. And it's because every conversation that I would have with a business owner revolved back to workforce and barriers to workforce. We talked about child care services earlier, affordable housing issues. If I could address affordable housing and child care services in rural Oklahoma, we could change a lot of rural communities. And so for me, it does go deeper because, again, communities that are going to grow over the next decade are going to be addressing those workforce challenges so that, again, the Tulsa Innovation Hubs of the world have people. They're growing companies, but they've got to be able to find those workers.
Where do you get your energy?
Where do I get my energy?
Yeah, where do you get your energy?
Ooh, I get my energy in people. I'm an introvert. This is like totally antithetical.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah, so I get my energy. I get to be working with wicked smart people, passionate people, and people who see possibility. That's where I get my energy, and I think we have that in spades in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma is okay.
Oh, it's better than okay.
Okay.
We're done. We took it off the license plate. You know, we had Oklahoma is okay on the license plate. Go see the Broadway. It's pretty great. But Oklahoma is a great state. It is the modern frontier.
I like
and over the next 10 years, we're really on to something.
Well, we're going to wrap this session a little differently. So before you leave, we have a couple of poll questions we want to get to and maybe get your response to it a little bit. We can take a look at the first question. Economic development programs for cities are the most crucial tool to prepare for the future. That's a quote. So to what extent do you agree or disagree? Strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. But let's take a look at what's coming in here.
Oh, wow.
I mean, yeah, I mean, as people are entering this, they're important. I mean, for us, you know, our career tech system and wherever you live, you know, there's multiple paths to a great career. We need plenty of kids going to college, don't get me wrong, but we also need people listening to Mike Rowe as well and what he talks about when it comes to skilled labor. And in Oklahoma, we're a huge manufacturing state. We need a whole lot more skilled labor. And our career tech system is one of the best in the country because we're training everything from nurses to electricians. And economic development, to me, means sending just as many kids to our career tech system as it does college.
I'm loving the general agreement on strongly agree. I think without strong strategies, your cities are just kind of waft in the wind at any given point in moment in time. So,
yeah.
Very quickly, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, I'm just curious. One of the panelists earlier this morning talked about liberal arts education. And one of the things he focused on that now, as a CEO, I understand more clearly than I did beforehand, was that without the rounding out of the edges, younger workers at times don't know how to talk with or to a manager or a CEO. They talk beyond them. They pay no attention. That they might miss in just technical development. So I just put that out there.
That's a whole other panel. That's a whole day conversation, but that's why there's consulting firms today that companies hire to teach kids how to talk on a telephone because they get so much anxiety to make phone calls because kids don't make phone calls anymore. I got 4 kids. I'm an expert on this. But no, it's fascinating. It's the future of work, and we could spend all day talking about it.
And I will say, just for the record, it's not only the kids. Because
Good point.
I have managers
Good point.
that would rather email or text me than pick up the phone to deliver even good news.
That's right.
Which is beyond my comprehension, but nonetheless it happens. Okay, let's go to the second question. And this references back to the previous panel. Which is the most important approach we can take to support Black and Native Americans at the nexus of heritage preservation and economic renewal?
I think this topic's critical. I mean, this is everything that you see in modern day economic development strategies. Is how you include this, how do you make it center, and how do you make it the nexus of everything.
Yeah, I'll give a plug for cultural education. If you haven't seen the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, there's my pitch to go watch Killers of the Flower Moon, Senator. The largest production in state history in Oklahoma was that you do have to educate kids. If we don't teach them history, they're doomed to repeat it. We're all doomed to repeat it. And not a whole lot of people knew about the 100-year anniversary of the race massacre in Tulsa around Black Wall Street, and very few people knew about the Osage murders that Killers of the Flower Moon, the book, and now the movie talk about. So education through film and television is so powerful for the next generation, and I think every state should be investing in it. Yeah.
What a privilege it has been to talk with the two of you. Jennifer Hankins, the Managing Director of Tulsa Innovation Labs, and the Honorable Matt Pinnell, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much so.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.